The morning alarm echoed through the empty halls of Firebase Delta 7. Commander Hyunwoo walked past rows of unused bunks, his boots making the only sound in the silence. Once this base had housed 3,000 soldiers. Now barely 200 remained. He stopped at the main window and looked out at the alien landscape of Kepler 442b. Purple grass swayed in the wind under twin suns. In the distance, he could see the lights of the Coalition trading post. Ships came and went every day, carrying goods between the stars. None of them were human ships, sir. Captain Boram appeared beside him. She held a data pad in her hands. The morning reports. Hyunwoo took the pad without looking away from the window. The reports were always the same. Equipment getting older, supplies running low, no new orders from Earth, no messages from the Coalition. Anything from the deep space sensors? He asked. Boram shook her head. Just background noise. Same as always, but Hyunwoo knew it was not the same. The patterns were different. Something was moving out there in the dark space between galaxies. He had been watching for months, but every time he sent reports to the Coalition, they told him to stop worrying about old data. The Coalition Council had made their decision clear 6 months ago. Humanity's military service was no longer needed. The galaxy was at peace. There had been no major wars for 100 years. The 12 species of the Coalition had learned to work together. Trade was good. Conflicts were solved with words, not weapons. Humans had been good soldiers once. They had helped win the great wars against the machine armies centuries ago. But that was history now. The galaxy had moved forward. Peace was more valuable than war. Most humans had accepted this. They left their military posts and joined civilian life. Some married aliens and started new families on strange worlds. Others became traders or engineers. The few who stayed in service were assigned to quiet posts like Firebase Delta 7, watching empty space for threats that would never come. Lieutenant Minho ran up to them, out of breath. "Sir, we have a transmission from the Coalition Council." Hyunwoo and Boram followed him to the communications room. The large screen showed the seal of the Coalition. Admiral Veltaran appeared, his blue skin and 4 arms marking him as Altarian. His voice was formal and cold. "Commander Hyunwoo of the Human Defense Force. By order of the Coalition Council, Firebase Delta 7 is to be decommissioned within 30 days. Your unit will be dissolved. All personnel are to report to integration centers for civilian reassignment." The message continued with details about benefits and housing. When it ended, the room was quiet. Minho looked confused. "Sir, what does this mean?" "It means they don't want us anymore," said Sergeant Dong Hyun from the back of the room. He was an old soldier with gray hair and scars from battles most people had forgotten. "We're officially useless." Boram turned to Hyunwoo. "What are your orders, sir?" Hyunwoo was quiet for a long moment. Outside, he could hear the wind picking up. A storm was coming to Kepler 442b, but that was nothing compared to what he felt was coming from the dark spaces beyond the galaxy. "Get me a secure channel to Earth," he said finally. Minho worked at his console. "Channel open, sir." "This is Commander Hyunwoo calling Earth Defense Command." "Priority Alpha." The response came quickly. General Yoonji appeared on screen. She was older now with white streaks in her black hair. Like all Earth military leaders, she had been pushed into early retirement when the Coalition decided peace was permanent. "Hyunwoo, I heard about the decommission order." "I'm sorry. General, I need to ask you something. Are we really standing down?" Yoonji looked around, making sure no one else could hear. "Officially, yes. The President has ordered all units to comply with Coalition wishes. Unofficially." She paused. "Keep your sensors running. Keep watching. Something tells me this peace won't last forever." "What about the energy signatures we've been detecting?" "What energy signatures?" "According to our records, you haven't sent any unusual reports." Yoonji's eyes were serious. "If you understand my meaning." Hyunwoo nodded. Earth was listening even if they couldn't say so officially. After the call ended, Boram approached him. "Sir, what do we do?" Hyunwoo looked around the room at his remaining soldiers. Minho at communications. Dong Hyun checking weapons that the Coalition called outdated. Specialist Ji-hoon working on electronic systems that were supposedly too primitive for modern warfare. Combat engineer So Young maintaining defensive systems that no one thought would ever be used. These were good soldiers. They had trained for years to defend the galaxy. The Coalition might think peace was permanent, but soldiers knew better. Peace was just the time between wars. We follow orders, Hyunwoo said loudly, then more quietly. But we follow the right orders. Over the next few days, something strange happened. Officially, Firebase Delta 7 began shutting down. Equipment was packed. Reports were filed. Most of the soldiers left for integration centers on Coalition worlds, but Hyunwoo and his core team stayed. They moved to the old mining tunnels beneath the base. They kept the deep space sensors running on minimal power. They maintained their weapons and equipment in secret. Borum found volunteers among the human civilians on nearby worlds, former soldiers who had never quite settled into peaceful life, engineers who remembered how to build things that could fight as well as trade, traders who knew every hidden route through Coalition space. Minho set up a communication network that looked like normal civilian traffic. Messages hidden in trade reports, sensor data disguised as mining surveys. If anyone was watching, it looked like humans were just trying to make an honest living in the galaxy. But they were really preparing for something else. Something they could feel coming from the dark spaces where no Coalition ship ever went. On his last official day as commander, Hyunwoo stood again at the main window. The Coalition trading post was busier than ever. Alien merchants laughed and made deals. Their children played in the purple grass. Everything looked peaceful and safe. Donghyun came to stand beside him. Think they'll thank us when it's over? Does it matter? Hyunwoo asked. The old sergeant smiled. Not really. We're soldiers. We do the job whether they remember us or not. As the twin suns set over Kepler 442b, Hyunwoo made his choice. The galaxy might forget what soldiers were for. The Coalition might believe peace would last forever, but Earth would remember. And when the darkness came again, they would be ready. The storm clouds gathered overhead, and Hyunwoo went below ground to wait. The first attack came without warning. Admiral Veltarin was reviewing trade reports in his office when every alarm in Coalition headquarters began screaming. Red lights flashed across his command center. Officers ran between stations, shouting numbers that made no sense. Sir! His aide rushed up to him. We're receiving distress signals from the outer rim. Multiple systems under attack. Veltarin's 4 arms moved quickly across his control panel. The main screen showed the galaxy map. Red dots appeared one by one, marking worlds going silent. First one. Then 3. Then 10. Who is attacking? He demanded. Unknown ships, sir. The energy signatures don't match any known technology. More red dots appeared. Veltarin felt cold fear in his stomach. This was impossible. The galaxy was at peace. There were no hostile forces left. The great threats had been defeated centuries ago. Get me contact with the Zelthari homeworld, he ordered. Static filled the speakers. Sir, we can't reach them. The entire system appears to be gone. On the hidden sensors beneath Kepler 442b, Minho watched the same signals. But the human equipment was older, built for different purposes. It could detect things that modern Coalition technology missed. Commander, he called to Hyunwoo. You need to see this. Hyunwoo climbed down into the underground command center. It was small and cramped compared to the official base above. But it was hidden and it worked. What do you have? Minho pointed to his screen. The energy patterns match something in our old military database. From the ancient wars before we joined the Coalition, the data scrolled across the screen. Hyunwoo felt his blood turn cold as he read it. Devourers, he whispered. Borum looked up from her station. I thought they were destroyed. Completely eliminated. So did everyone else. Hyunwoo studied the readings. But machines can rebuild. And they learn. The Devourers had been the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. Ancient artificial intelligence that existed only to consume and expand. They turned entire star systems into raw materials for their war machines. The Coalition's ancestors had fought them for generations before finally winning. But that victory had come at a terrible cost. Whole civilizations had been lost. The survivors had sworn never to let such destruction happen again. They built the Coalition to maintain peace and prevent any future wars. Now the Devourers were back. Sir, Ji-hoon called from his electronic station. I'm picking up Coalition military transmissions. They're trying to organize a defense. Hyunwoo listened to the desperate radio chatter. Coalition fleets were mobilizing, but their commanders sounded confused. Modern Coalition military doctrine was built for peacekeeping and small conflicts. Their ships were designed for efficiency and diplomacy, not total war. The Devourers had been studying them for 100 years. Every Coalition tactic, every standard defense, every predictable strategy, The machines had learned to counter all of it. Within hours, the reports became worse. The proud Nexari battle fleet, considered the finest in the galaxy, was scattered by a force half its size. 3 coalition core worlds went dark in a single day. The Altarian defense grid, built to protect their capital system, lasted exactly 17 minutes. The machines are adapting faster than our forces can react, Boram said, reading the intelligence reports. Every time the coalition tries a new strategy, the Devourers counter it immediately. Dong Hyun laughed, but there was no humor in it. That's what happens when you fight clean wars for too long. You forget how to fight dirty. So Young looked up from her engineering station. Sir, what about our old tactics? The irregular warfare protocols that the coalition banned. Hyunwoo remembered those protocols. Guerrilla strikes, psychological warfare, unpredictable attacks that made no logical sense. The coalition had called them primitive and barbaric. They preferred organized battles with clear rules and minimal casualties. But the Devourers were logical. They analyzed patterns and predicted responses. They could not adapt to chaos because chaos had no pattern to study. Pull up everything, Hyunwoo ordered. Every dirty trick we ever used. Every unconventional tactic the coalition made us abandon. For 3 days they worked in secret while the galaxy burned above them. Coalition forces retreated from system after system. Refugee ships fled toward the core worlds, carrying stories of machine armies that seemed unstoppable. On the 4th day, Minho detected something new on his sensors. Sir, we're receiving a coded transmission. It's from Admiral Veltaran himself. The message was short and desperate. The coalition was losing badly. Their conventional military was failing. Admiral Veltaran was asking for any information about ancient anti-devourer tactics. But the message was not official. The Coalition Council was too proud to officially ask humans for help. They still believed their advanced technology and organized tactics would eventually work. He's asking without asking, Boram said. If we help, it has to look like we're acting on our own. Hyunwoo made his decision. Minho sent a coded response. Tell him we're tracking unusual energy patterns from our position. Suggest that old irregular warfare data might be useful for reference. And if the Council finds out we're still operating, then we'll deal with that when it happens. That night, Hyunwoo sent a secure message to Earth. General Yoonji appeared on the screen, looking tired and worried. The whole galaxy is falling apart, she said without greeting. The President is getting pressure to offer coalition aid officially, but they haven't asked. They're too proud to ask, Hyunwoo replied. But they need help whether they admit it or not. What do you need from us? Everything. Activate the old production facilities. Start calling back veterans, and do it quietly. Yoonji nodded. Already started. President Taemin authorized Operation Ghostwatch this morning. Officially, we're just increasing our defensive readiness in case the threat spreads to human space. And unofficially, we're getting ready to remind the galaxy why they needed soldiers in the first place. As the call ended, alarms began sounding on Kepler 442b. Through the underground bunker's periscope, Hyunwoo could see coalition ships fleeing past the planet. The trading post was shutting down. Alien families were loading their belongings onto refugee transports. The Devourers were getting closer. Sir, Boram approached him. Orders? Hyunwoo looked around at his small team. They were just a few soldiers hiding in old mining tunnels. Against them was a machine intelligence that had defeated the entire coalition military. But they had something the coalition had forgotten. They remembered how to fight when fighting clean wasn't enough. We stay, he said simply. We watch, we learn, and when the time comes, we remind everyone what humans do best. Outside, the last coalition ship disappeared into hyperspace, leaving Kepler 442b alone in the darkness. The Devourers were coming, and the galaxy had nowhere left to run. But in the tunnels below, Earth's forgotten soldiers prepared for war. Admiral Veltaran stood in his empty command center, staring at the galaxy map. Half of it was now red, dead worlds, silent systems. The coalition fleet was down to 30% of its original strength and falling back toward the core worlds every day. His aide approached carefully. Sir, the Council is demanding another status report. Tell them the same thing I told them yesterday, Veltaran said without turning around. We're losing, the aide hesitated. Sir, there might be alternatives. I've been reviewing the old archives like you ordered. The human military records from the ancient wars. Now Velterran turned. What did you find? Tactics, sir. Strange ones. The humans called them asymmetric warfare. They didn't fight the Devourers directly. They attacked supply lines, confused communications, made the machines waste resources on false targets. And it worked? According to the records, human forces were responsible for 30% of Devourer losses in the final campaigns. But their methods were... The aide paused. The council called them primitive and cruel. Velterran looked back at the red zones spreading across his map. More cruel than watching civilizations die. On Earth, President Taymin walked through the reactivated military factories. Machines that had been silent for decades were running again. Workers who had been building peaceful trade goods were now making weapons and armor. General Unji met him at the main production line. How long do we have? Unknown, Taymin replied. The coalition still hasn't officially asked for help. If we act without permission, we could be accused of violating the peace treaties. And if we don't act, there might not be a coalition left to violate treaties with. They walked past workers loading equipment onto unmarked transport ships. Everything looked like normal industrial activity. But hidden among the civilian cargo were weapons, ammunition, and military supplies. The volunteers? Taymin asked. More than we expected. Retired soldiers, former officers, even civilians who want to help. The word is spreading through human communities across the galaxy. At his hidden command post, Hyunwoo coordinated with these scattered volunteers. Former Sergeant Kwan Ho, now running a freight business in the Centauri sector, reported Devourer movement patterns. Ex-Captain Yuna, married to an Exari engineer on Proxima Station, sent technical data about coalition defensive failures. They're all asking the same question, Boram said, reading the messages. When do we act? Soon, Hyunwoo replied. But we need more intelligence first. That intelligence came from an unexpected source. A young Nexari engineer named Kaleth contacted them through encrypted civilian channels. His homeworld had fallen to the Devourers, but he had escaped with detailed scans of their technology. The machines have evolved, Kaleth's message explained. They study our tactics and adapt within hours. But there's something strange. They seem confused by irregular patterns. Random attacks with no logical purpose cause them to overreact. Jihoon studied the data. It makes sense. The Devourers are built to be efficient. They expect rational military behavior. When they encounter something that doesn't follow logic, they try to analyze it and end up wasting processing power, like trying to find a pattern in pure chaos, So Young added. Hyunwoo smiled for the first time in weeks. Exactly. And nobody does chaos like humans. Meanwhile, the coalition forces continued their conventional retreat. Every battle was fought by the book. Every tactic followed established military doctrine. And every engagement ended in defeat. Admiral Velterran received reports of the latest disaster. The Meridian defense line, built over 50 years and considered impregnable, had fallen in less than 6 hours. The Devourers had simply calculated the optimal attack pattern and executed it perfectly. Sir, his aide said quietly, I have an unofficial communication. From the humans. Velterran read the message twice. It was simple and direct. Human forces were willing to provide tactical assistance, but only if they could operate outside normal coalition command structure. They wanted freedom to use their own methods without oversight. They want to fight their own war, the aide said. Can they win it? Unknown, sir. But our way isn't working. That night, Velterran sent his own unofficial reply. He would provide intelligence and support, but the humans would have to take responsibility for their own actions. If questioned by the Council, he would deny any knowledge of their operations. At Firebase Delta 7, now completely hidden underground, Hyunwoo received the Admiral's message. With it came detailed intelligence about Devourer positions, movement patterns, and technological capabilities. It's time, he told his team. Min Ho activated communication channels across the galaxy. The messages went out in dozens of different codes, hidden in civilian transmissions, disguised as everything from trading updates to personal letters, to human volunteers scattered across coalition space. The family reunion is beginning. Bring your old photo albums. To retired Earth military personnel. Grandfather's stories are needed again. Time to remember the old ways. To President Taymin. Request permission to visit distant relatives. Extended stay likely. Within hours, responses came back. Kwanho would begin equipment deliveries to specific coordinates. Yuna had maintenance access to coalition communication networks. Dozens of other volunteers confirmed they were ready to help their family, however needed. But the most important response came from General Yunji. Earth's hidden military preparations were complete. Ships and supplies were ready. Most critically, she had been in contact with human civilians throughout coalition space, organizing them into a resistance network. "We have people everywhere," her message said. "Scientists, engineers, traders, even some who married into alien families. They've been part of coalition society for decades, but they remember who they are." Hyunwoo felt a surge of pride. Humans might have been forgotten by the galaxy, but they had not forgotten each other. Dong-hyun was cleaning his old rifle when he spoke up. "You know, sir, there's something the machines won't expect." "What's that?" "We're not just fighting for the coalition. We're fighting for our neighbors, the alien families who shared their worlds with us, the friends we made during the peace. The Devourers think this is just another military campaign." So Young nodded. "But for us, it's personal." Hyunwoo looked around at his small team. They were about to take on an enemy that had defeated the entire galactic military. The odds were impossible. The risks were enormous. But they were ready. "Send the activation code," he ordered Minho. Across the galaxy, humans who had lived quiet, peaceful lives for decades began remembering their old training. They retrieved hidden weapons. They activated emergency protocols. They prepared to show the Devourers something they had never encountered before. War without rules. Fighting without honor. Victory at any cost. The galaxy had forgotten what soldiers were for. But Earth remembered, and it was time to remind everyone why humanity had been needed in the first place. The counterattack was about to begin. The first sign of the human resistance came as whispers in the dark. Devourer Command Node 7742 registered minor system failures across 17 different sectors. Supply convoys arrived with empty cargo holds. Communication relays transmitted corrupted data. Mining operations reported equipment malfunctions. Each incident was small. Individually, they meant nothing. But together, they created a pattern that the machine intelligence could not understand. On the captured world of Rigel Prime, Specialist Ji-hoon crouched in the ruins of a coalition research station. His equipment looked like standard civilian repair tools, but hidden circuits turned them into something else entirely. "Uploading virus package 7, he whispered into his communicator. "Target, local logistics network." The Devourers had taken Rigel Prime 3 weeks ago. Their massive processing ships strip-mined the planet's resources while their patrol craft maintained perfect security patterns. Everything was efficient. Everything was logical. That was their weakness. Ji-hoon's virus was not designed to destroy their systems. Instead, it made them see patterns that did not exist. Phantom supply requests, false priority orders, imaginary security threats that required investigation. Within hours, the Devourer forces on Rigel Prime were chasing ghosts. Patrol ships investigated empty coordinates. Supply vessels delivered materials to locations where no facilities existed. Processing units wasted energy analyzing false data. The machines tried to adapt, but there was nothing to adapt to. The chaos was random, without purpose or logic. Every time they thought they understood the pattern, it changed into something else. Phase 1 complete, Ji-hoon reported. Moving to extraction point. Across the sector, similar operations were happening simultaneously. Combat engineer So Young had infiltrated a Devourer construction site disguised as a refugee worker. The machines were building a massive shipyard in orbit around the dead world of Kepler-7. So Young had spent 2 weeks studying their construction patterns. The Devourers built everything with mathematical precision. Each component had its exact place. Every system had backup systems. It was perfect engineering, but perfection could be turned against itself. She planted her charges carefully, not to destroy the shipyard, but to create cascade failures. When the first explosive went off, it would damage a support beam just enough to shift stress to other components. Those components would fail, shifting stress again. The entire structure would tear itself apart trying to compensate for problems that kept multiplying. "Gift delivered," she reported to Hyunwoo.
"Suggest distant viewing for the fireworks." Meanwhile, former freight captain Kwan Ho was running what appeared to be normal supply missions between coalition refugee camps.
His ship's cargo manifest listed food, medicine, and basic supplies. The manifest was accurate, but hidden among the relief supplies were weapons, ammunition, and communication equipment. Each delivery strengthened the growing resistance network. Package delivered to family on Proxima Station, he reported in code. Cousins were very grateful for grandfather's old books. The cousins were human civilians who had been living peacefully among Proxima Station's alien population for decades. The old books were detailed manuals on irregular warfare, sabotage, and guerrilla tactics. At his hidden command post, Hyunwoo coordinated the growing campaign through Minho's communication network. Reports came in from across the galaxy. Human volunteers were emerging from civilian life to carry out missions that no military academy taught. Devourer response patterns are becoming erratic. Boram analyzed the intelligence data. They're deploying massive forces to guard against single operatives. Their resource allocation is breaking down. Good, Dong-hyun said, loading magazines for his old rifle. Paranoid machines make mistakes. The real proof came when Admiral Veltaran's aide brought him the latest battlefield reports. For the first time since the war began, Devourer advances had slowed. Some sectors showed actual tactical retreats. What changed? Veltaran demanded. Unknown, sir. The machines seem to be fighting multiple small conflicts instead of focusing on main objectives. Our intelligence suggests they're responding to threats that may not actually exist. Veltaran studied the data. Hidden in the official reports were subtle signs of the human operations. Equipment failures in Devourer territory. Communication disruptions. Supply problems. Increase reconnaissance in affected sectors, he ordered, but maintain normal patrol schedules. We need to look like we're not coordinating with anyone. The unofficial cooperation continued. Coalition forces would accidentally leave gaps in their patrol routes. Devourer positions would be mistakenly transmitted on frequencies that human operatives monitored. Intelligence reports would inadvertently include data useful for sabotage operations. But the most important breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Ex-Captain Yuna, now married to an Exari engineer, had been studying Devourer communication patterns from inside a coalition refugee center. I found something, her coded message said. The machines have a central coordination hub. All tactical decisions flow through a single processing center in the Galactic Core region. Hyunwoo shared this intelligence with his team. The implications were enormous. If we could disrupt that hub, So Young said, we could paralyze their entire war effort. Or turn it against them, Ji-hoon added. If my viruses could reach their central processing network. But reaching the Galactic Core would require more than sabotage and guerrilla warfare. It would need a direct assault, exactly the kind of conventional operation that had already failed repeatedly. That evening, Hyunwoo received a coded transmission from General Yoon-ji on Earth. Her message was simple but devastating. Family emergency requires immediate attention. All relatives requested to attend. Grandfather's final wishes must be honored. Boram looked confused. What does that mean? It means Earth is ready to commit everything, Hyunwoo replied. Ships, soldiers, the full military. But they need us to provide target data and tactical coordination. A direct assault on the coordination hub. No, something better. Hyunwoo studied the galactic map, thinking about everything they had learned. We're going to make the machines destroy themselves. The plan was ambitious beyond anything they had attempted. It would require perfect timing, total commitment, and a level of deception that pushed human creativity to its limits. But as reports continued coming in from across the galaxy, Hyunwoo knew they were ready. Human civilians who had been forgotten by their own government were proving that they remembered their duty. Soldiers who had been dismissed as obsolete were showing that experience still mattered. The Devourers had evolved to counter conventional military tactics. They had adapted to defeat organized resistance, but they had never encountered anything like what humanity was bringing to this war. Begin Phase 2, Hyunwoo ordered. Time to teach the machines about human creativity. Across the galaxy, the whispers in the dark became a roar. But it was a roar that only humans could hear, transmitted in codes that only they understood, coordinating operations that only they could imagine. The galaxy had forgotten them. But they were about to remember why that had been a mistake. The real war was just beginning. General Yoon-ji stood on the bridge of the ESS Incheon, watching her fleet prepare for what looked like certain death. 200 Earth ships, hastily converted from civilian vessels, face the strongest Devourer stronghold in the Vega sector. All ships report ready for operation, her communications officer announced. Yunji nodded, knowing that half her crews were volunteers who had never seen real combat. Former traders, mining ship captains, even passenger liner crews who had answered Earth's call. They would die today and they knew it, but their deaths would save the galaxy. "Begin the attack," she ordered. The Earth fleet charged forward with desperate courage. Their weapons were outdated. Their ships were slower than modern coalition vessels. Against the Devourer defense grid, they stood no chance. The battle lasted exactly 47 minutes. One by one, Earth ships were disabled or destroyed. The Devourers captured every escape pod, every piece of wreckage, every scrap of data they could find. When it was over, General Yunji sat in a Devourer prison cell, apparently defeated. Around her, the surviving crew members looked broken and hopeless. Analysis complete, the machine intelligence announced to its command network. Human military capabilities assessed. Threat level minimal. Earth resistance capacity eliminated. The Devourers had finally solved the human problem. They now understood every Earth tactic, every weapon system, every strategic doctrine. The random attacks and sabotage operations had been annoying, but ultimately pointless. Humanity posed no real threat to their conquest. They were completely wrong. 3 days after the defeat, Admiral Veltarin received a coded transmission that made his hands shake. It was from Commander Hyunwoo, still hidden in his underground base. The bait was taken. Phase 3 begins now. Across the galaxy, humans who had been hiding among refugee populations began to move, not as soldiers this time, but as something far more dangerous. They had been watching, learning, preparing for this moment. On Proxima Station, Yuna stood in the Coalition Communication Center where she worked as a civilian technician. Her alien husband and children thought she was just doing her normal job. They did not know that she carried weapons hidden in her toolkit, or that she had memorized the location of every critical system in the station. "Beginning Phase 3, she whispered into her concealed communicator. Yuna's target was not the station itself, but the Devourer communication relay that had been installed after their occupation. The machines used it to coordinate their forces across 17 star systems, but Yuna was not there to destroy it. She was there to reprogram it. 20 light-years away, So Young crawled through maintenance tunnels beneath a captured Coalition military base. The Devourers had turned it into a major supply depot, processing center for their expanding war machine. Like Yuna, So Young was not there to blow things up. She carried Ji-hoon's most sophisticated virus programs designed specifically for this moment. "In position," she reported, beginning upload. The virus was a masterpiece of deception. It looked like normal communication traffic, but it carried hidden instructions that would spread through the Devourer network like a cancer. But the most important operation was happening in the galactic core, where the Devourer Central Coordination Hub processed all strategic decisions for their war effort. General Yunji was not really a prisoner. Her capture had been carefully planned. Hidden among her crew were So Young's most experienced infiltration specialists, disguised as ordinary soldiers and ship technicians. They had spent months training for this single mission. While the Devourers analyzed captured Earth technology, the infiltrators were studying the coordination hub from the inside. They mapped its systems, identified its weaknesses, and prepared for the moment when they would strike. That moment came when Ji-hoon's viruses reached their target. The programs had been spreading through the Devourer network for days, hidden in normal data traffic. Now they activated simultaneously across thousands of systems, but these were not destruction viruses. They were deception programs. Suddenly, the Devourer coordination network was flooded with false information. Phantom fleets appeared on sensors. Imaginary threats materialized in empty space. Non-existent coalition reinforcements seemed to be massing for counterattacks. The machine intelligence tried to process this information logically. If there were threats, they needed to be countered. If enemy fleets were mobilizing, defensive forces needed to be repositioned. Within hours, the Devourers were fighting enemies that existed only in their own communication network. From his hidden command post, Hyunwoo watched the chaos unfold. "Status report from all teams." Yuna confirms successful network penetration, Minho reported. So-Young has uploaded the core virus packages. Infiltration teams report the central hub is responding to false data. And our people scattered across the galaxy? Everyone is in position, waiting for your signal. Hyun-woo looked at the tactical display. Devourer forces were already beginning to move in response to the false threats. Their perfect efficiency was turning into their greatest weakness. Send the activation code. All units execute Operation Skyfall. Across the galaxy, humans who had been living quiet lives for decades suddenly revealed themselves. But not as guerrilla fighters or saboteurs this time. They became something the Devourers had never seen before. Soldiers who fell from the sky. On captured worlds, human civilians who had been working as maintenance crews, medical personnel, and supply handlers suddenly produced weapons and began coordinated attacks. They emerged from residential areas, storage facilities, and refugee camps, striking at critical infrastructure the machines had never thought to guard. Former military personnel, who had been hiding among alien populations, activated emergency caches of equipment that had been secretly positioned years earlier. They did not fight like regular soldiers. They fought like ghosts, appearing from nowhere, striking impossible targets, then vanishing again. Space stations across Coalition territory suddenly found their human workers seizing critical systems. Freight captains like Quan Ho revealed that their civilian ships carried hidden weapons and military specialists. The Devourers had been prepared for human military resistance. They had adapted to human guerrilla tactics, but they had never expected an entire species to rise up simultaneously from within their own conquered territory. Reports coming in from all sectors, Boram announced. Human units are emerging everywhere. The machines are completely overwhelmed. On the main display, Hyun-woo could see Devourer forces trying to respond to dozens of simultaneous crises. Their coordination network, confused by false information and viral interference, was sending contradictory orders. Units meant to reinforce Sector 7 were instead sent to defend against imaginary threats in Sector 12, but the real victory came from the central hub itself. General Eunji's infiltration team had spent days learning the facility's systems. When the chaos began, they struck at the heart of the machine intelligence. They did not destroy the coordination hub. Instead, they took control of it. This is General Eunji. Her transmission reached Hyun-woo's hidden base. We have control of Devourer Central Command. Beginning reprogramming sequence. The virus programs that Ji-hoon had designed months earlier now had direct access to the machine network. But instead of destroying it, they began rewriting its core functions. The Devourer coordination system, designed to process logical military decisions, suddenly found itself receiving orders that made no sense. Attack your own forces. Retreat from empty space. Defend positions that did not exist. The machine intelligence tried to adapt, but adaptation required logical patterns to analyze. There was no logic in what was happening. No pattern to study. No rational strategy to counter. For the first time in their existence, the Devourers encountered something their processing systems could not understand. Pure human chaos, amplified through their own communication network. Sir, Dong-hyun said, watching the tactical display, I think we broke them. Hyun-woo smiled as reports continued coming in. Across the galaxy, Devourer forces were turning on each other, following contradictory orders from their own command systems. Their perfect efficiency had become complete confusion. Send a message to Admiral Valtarin, he ordered. Tell him the Coalition can begin their counteroffensive. The machines won't be coordinating their defense anymore. As the twin sons of Kepler 442b sat outside his underground bunker, Hyun-woo realized that Earth had kept its promise. The galaxy might have forgotten humanity's value, but when darkness came again, humans had remembered their duty. They had fallen from the sky like rain, and the galaxy was saved.